Well, welcome to week 5 of our whole Bible read through. And this week I want to give you kind of a warning. We're going into Leviticus, and this is often the place where people give up on a Bible reading program. So I want to urge you to stay with it, but acknowledge this is going to seem foreign, weird, tedious. I would really encourage you, even if you're not in the habit, to watch the Bible Project videos that are scheduled this week and next. They're great explainers, and they'll really orient you to the content of this material, and just, I think, brilliantly produced and have great messages. Okay, so do that. They're better videos than this one, I can tell you that for sure. All right, so what are we going to see in Leviticus that's so strange? Well, first you're going to see a lot of ritual. Now, you and I have rituals too, but their rituals are different from ours, and so they're unfamiliar and seem strange to us. A very strange ritual to us is the ritual of sacrifice. Now, Israel's rituals always make better sense if we understand them in light of what their neighbors are doing. Israel's neighbors, pagans, are offering sacrifices to their gods, but they're seen as bribes. This is something I'm going to give to the God so that the God will do something nice for me. In Leviticus, in the Old Testament, though, God is giving sacrifice to his people as his gift to them to allow and to facilitate their relationship. So God says, when you sin against me, you need forgiveness. I will accept the life of this animal that I provide rather than taking your own life. And so that animal provides a substitute. You'll want to give thanks to me. You'll want to just celebrate my goodness to you, the bounty that I give to you. Sacrifice is a means of doing that, and you're going to participate in that as taking part of that animal is a feast that you're going to enjoy. Now, these sacrifices really prefigure the sacrifice of Christ, who dies as our substitute in our place. And this is why you'll see the sacrifice is described as being cut into pieces to be placed on the altar, and the blood is going to be collected and to be poured out as a symbol of the life of the animal being given in place of the life of the worshiper. This is what Jesus is doing when he says, "This is my body broken for you. This is my blood poured out for you." He's alluding to that passage, to that practice, to say to his followers, I'm dying on your behalf as your true and greatest sacrifice. Sometimes we say ultimate sacrifice, meaning this the sacrifice that fulfills everything that God has been doing. Now, another ritual that God gives to Israel are the feasts, and I love feasting, so I'm all about this. Israel's feasts are celebration of creation, the way that God has created a bounty for his people, but especially of the Exodus. They remember coming out of Egypt and living in the wilderness and all the ways that God has blessed Israel through that. And so these celebrations are kind of enactments that remind Israel of the story that they belong to and that God is telling them. And in doing this, they're participating in this. Now, interestingly, Jesus uses the Feast of Passover as the basis for what we call the Lord's Supper, as he puts that all together at the Last Supper and transforms that. More about that later. Well, another foreign element for us are the priests that God gives. Israel says we don't want to be in God's presence, and they're wise to say that. It's overwhelming and very scary. And so God says, I'll give you priests who will mediate between you and me. This is partly because Israel refuses that face-to-face relationship. But it looks forward especially to the way that Jesus acts as our high priest and how God will call us as Jesus followers to be a nation of priests. So people who are mediating to the world the light and the love of God. The law of Leviticus also talks about purity a great deal. You and I have purity rules, a lot of them based on science, but also just rules about which animals are appropriate and inappropriate to eat, cultural matters. Well, God gives purity rules to Israel, things about food, about clothing, but also about everyday bodily issues like sex and menstruation and blood, childbirth, etc. Not because those things are seen as evil, but as means of expressing Israel's unique cultural identity as people who are called by God. And God provides means for becoming pure again when someone encounters impurity. Well, why all of this law? Part of the law establishes God's justice, rules about, love your neighbor as yourself, and so don't steal, don't kill, don't bear false witness. Part of it sets Israel apart from their neighbors. As we've said, the laws of ritual and purity express identity. Even though the laws of justice aren't fully just, God tells Israel not to avoid slavery, which they should. They were slaves in Egypt, but he regulates slavery among them. So if they follow the law, it will be a less onerous, more humane practice. But he's not saying this is ideal. He's leading us to something greater. The law has the seeds of its own obsolescence in it. Not that God's justice changes, but this is what we learn. You see, because Israel never quite keeps the law very well. And as we're reading the Torah, we see the narratives along with the laws that show us this, that show us, we're not good at keeping the rules. We didn't keep the rules in the garden. We don't keep the rules in the wilderness. We don't keep the rules. We need not just forgiveness, but we need power. And so, as Paul will say in the New Testament, the law is preparing us for what God does in Christ. So hang with it, y'all. See what's up in Leviticus, and let's make progress towards our goal.